Welcome. Oh my God, this is so wobbly. This is going to be the beginning of every video. It's just, wow, how wobbly. Shit. I read quite a few books this month for a couple of reasons. One, they were either graphic novels or novellas. And two, the world is on fire and I need something to distract myself from the horrors of living. Yay. But anyway, let's step away from that because that just makes me sad and I want to not be sad. So most of the books I have are from the library, so I don't have physical copies of most of them. But let's get started. The first book I read was Fly Away, which I talked about in my December wrapped up for some reason, despite the fact that I finished it in January. So I won't go into a lot of details about it. Suffice it to say, I did not like it. I gave it 2 stars. I think it was mostly because all of the characters felt very one-dimensional, despite the fact that they were all grieving. The way they handled their grief was all very similar. I just didn't see a lot of nuance when it came to their grief. I felt like they all grieved the same way. And I'm not even going to go into what this book is about because it's a sequel to Firefly Lane, and the entire premise of the book is one giant spoiler for Firefly Lane. But let's just say that all of the characters are grieving, and they all do it similarly. They all blow up their lives. They all make terrible decisions. Basically, anything bad that can happen to these characters does happen to them. So it's a very depressing book, and it just wasn't for me. The next book that I read was Bright Young Women by, that's a good question, Jessica Knoll. My Goodreads behind me on my computer. I was not a fan of this book either. I gave this book 2 stars as well. It was a lot to get through. The tone switched pretty often because it went from one character who was friends with a victim from the serial killer. Let me tell you what this book is about. Bright Young Women is about a serial killer whose name is not mentioned. He is only mentioned as the defendant. And it goes between the lives of the people he killed and also the people who were friends with those victims. So it goes between 2 perspectives. One is the best friend of one of the victims at a sorority, and the other is a future victim, but it's also in the past. She is a victim that happened before the person at the sorority did, but it goes between the 2 of them. So not only does it go between a victim and a friend of the victim, but it also goes in between timelines. And it felt really jarring to go in between those 2 things. Like, it's just this girl's life, the girl who's the victim, and then there's just a brutal ending. And because you know what's going to happen, so it just makes the whole thing very sad. I also don't agree necessarily with writing this kind of book. I get that you're trying to give voice to the victims, but at the same time, you're still profiting off of those victims. And at the same time, it's also fictional. So are you really giving voice to the victims if you are fictionalizing it and dramatizing it? I don't know. I feel complicated about it. It took a lot to get through, and I almost DNF'd it, but I was so close to finishing it that I just finished it. So read the trigger warnings on that one, of course, because it's pretty brutal. Okay, the next book that I read was The Poppy War by R. Kwong. This book I gave 5 stars. I thought it was very good. It's about a girl who is trying to escape an arranged marriage. So she goes to this elite academy where she basically is going to become a soldier in case a war ever breaks out. There's been 2 wars in the past called the Poppy Wars, and they're worried that a 3rd one is going to happen because one country keeps invading the other. This book was really interesting because I think it switches genres really well. It feels like it's just an academic kind of... She spends a lot of time in the academy learning how to become a soldier, and in that space, it switches to basically another genre. And I think this character, Rin, is really complex, and she is basically just trying to figure out what she's doing with her life and how to see these people that her country has been at war with for years and generations. And she makes some very interesting and very complex choices throughout the book. And it's also pretty devastating. There's a lot of... Read the trigger warnings on this one as well, because not only do terrible things happen, but they happen in great detail. So I would be careful with this one. I'm planning on reading the other two because I really like this one, but I heard that the third one is devastating and I'm very concerned about it. I did make an entire reading vlog about this one if you want to check it out. If not, that's okay. Okay, the next book that I read was A Man and His Cat. This is the first in a series about basically just that. It's a man and his cat. He adopts a cat. This man is lonely, and so he goes and adopts the cat that has been there I think he's been there the longest. At least he has been there for a long time and is so surprised to get adopted because you get both the man and the cat's point of view. And these two just really need each other. They care about each other so much, but they're afraid to be a burden on the other. And so they're constantly trying to be there for the other and also trying not to be too clingy. And I think it's just the cutest thing. It's a little sad just because they clearly, the both of them both clearly have issues and they have problems asking for love, but the other just provides it without needing to be asked, and it's just the cutest thing. It's really short too. But yeah, I would recommend this for anybody who needs to pick up, because I did when I was reading the Poppy War. And with everything going on in the world, I just needed to take a break from something heavy and I just wanted something light, and I picked this up instead. So I gave this 4 stars. I thought it was really good and really sweet. It's just so precious. Next, I read a graphic novel called Youth Group. This is a story about non-denominational Christians and them fighting demons. And it's a little cringy. I'm not going to lie. Some of the things that they do are a little cringy, but I think that's kind of the point. Like they take, I grew up non-denominationally Christian, and they mentioned VeggieTales and they mentioned Christian rock and all of these things that I used to partake in when I was a little kid. And it was fun. If you grew up in that kind of environment, it's just kind of a fun book. And then it's got a lot of action in it because they're fighting demons. So it's a lot of fun. But the main character is not part of the youth group. She is kind of anti-religion, and her mom they make a deal that she goes to youth group every Sunday. And so she kind of gets tangled up in it, and she seems to have some sort of special powers that the others don't. So you kind of learn about that, and there's some gay in it, which is really nice, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a little cringy, but in the best way. I ended up giving it 4 stars. And I don't know if they'll make another one or if this is standalone, but I'll read it if it comes out because it was really nostalgic for me without all the demons laying. But, next 2 I'm going to count as one because they were both novellas in a duology. It is A Psalm for the Wild Built and A Prayer for the Crown Shy. They are both by Becky Chambers. I gave them both 4 stars. They are just the sweetest books as well. I read a lot of sweet books and a lot of really depressing books, and there was no in between. These books are about a tea monk, non-binary, and they are a tea monk. They basically do therapy with tea. So people will come up to them and they will give them the perfect concoction of tea, and they will talk about their issues. But this is the second career that this monk has had. Their name is Dex. And I think it's so cute because they call them sibling Dex instead of brother or sister because they're non-binary. And I just think it's the sweetest thing. But it's just so effortless how non-binary people work in this world. It's just a perfect world. And they don't really say, I don't think it's Earth, but it's an Earth-like place that is years in the future after the robots gain sentience and they go off into the wilderness to go live their own lives. And this is 200 years in the future, past the robots leaving. So this tea monk is having kind of a crisis because they don't know if they are doing what they really want to do with their life. And then all of a sudden they run into a robot who hasn't been seen in 200 years. And they start having these philosophical questions. And there's so many good quotes from these books. Maybe I'll read them to you, but I have them on my phone, which I'm recording from. But not knowing what you're going to do with your life is something that really hits me hard. Because I went to school, I went to college, and I got a degree in journalism, and I am not using that degree. So to see someone take a chance and start a new job and it not being what they want it to be is really relatable to me. The first book is kind of the monk being introduced to the wilderness by the robot. And then the second book is the robot being introduced to humanity by the monk. So it's very sweet. It's actually very funny. There's a lot of funny moments in it. And maybe I'll look up some quotes and read them to you because I think they're really important and really good quotes. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, I found one of them. It was always a strange thing coming home. Coming home meant that you at one point left it and in doing so irreversibly changed. How odd then to be able to return to a place that would always be anchored in your notion of the past. How could this place still be here if the you that once lived there no longer existed? Yeah, I would recommend these books if you feel like the world is just falling apart and you want to read about a nice utopia where robots and monks become friends. I have to re-record this bit because my microphone died. Coffee. My microphone died in the middle of filming and then picked back up again, so I'm just going to insert this into the clip of me talking about the rest of the books that I was reading. It only cut out during this one, so apparently my mic didn't like this book. Okay. So this is about a 15-year-old girl who is gay, and she is struggling coming out to her friends and her family. She kind of has a different version of herself that she gives to each of these different groups of people. She is basically just trying to fit in so much that she's not really herself. And then she ends up meeting a Selkie who she ends up kissing, and that gives the Selkie the ability to walk on land. I'm watching my cat. She's just climbing all over my stuff. She can't walk on land every 7 years, is what it is. I don't know my mythology. This was a really cute book. I feel like this is really good for anybody who likes young adult coming of age stories or young adult LGBT stories. The only problem I had with this book was that it was really fast paced. Like, you barely get introduced to this character and all of a sudden she's making out with a random character and you're like, okay. All of a sudden the Selkie has legs and is following her around. And who is this character again? Like, I'm a big fan of Molly Ostertag. She did the art for Strong Female Protagonist, which is one of my favorite graphic novel series. And so I had really high expectations for this one. And it was pretty cute. It was pretty good. I gave it 3 stars. It was everything just happened a little too fast. And this book is not small either for a graphic novel. Like, it's pretty thick, but I feel like it needed more. It needed more build up to it before everything went down. But for a coming of age story, a cute little LGBT story, it's really cute. It talks about hiding yourself from the people you care about. So if you want something adorable, I would pick up that or A Man and His Cat. I don't know, maybe I'll give it to my wife. She's a really big fan of LGBT graphic novels. So, okay, back to the original recording that I did. Might have to refilm this because I think my microphone was dying this entire time. The book that I'm currently reading is Permanent Record by Mary H.K. Choi. She wrote my favorite book of last year, Yoke. And so this is a story about a kid. Well, he was a college dropout, so he's in like his 20s, who is working at a convenience store. And in the middle of the night, because he works the night shift, he ends up meeting up with this influencer and kind of influencer slash rock star kind of girl. And they strike up a friendship. So far, this has a lot to say about race. I am only that far through, and there's been a lot of conversations about race. He is Pakistani and South Korean, and she is, I want to say Hispanic. I can't remember. His friends he's struggling to get by. He's struggling with money, but he's also struggling with the expectations of, he got into NYU and ended up dropping out, which we don't really know the reason why as of yet. But he got himself into a load of debt, and he has these expectations from his parents because he got into NYU and he dropped out. So there's this big expectation of, well, what are you going to do with your life now? You had such a great opportunity that you threw away, and that kind of thing. And so far, there isn't a lot between him and this girl. They've only met up twice so far. But it's basically kind of a romance, and I'm pretty excited about it because I love the writing style. I don't think the dialogue is super accurate as to how people actually talk, but I still find it pretty entertaining. What I'm in the middle of is Watermoon, which I know was on a lot of people's most anticipated books of 2025 list. It's beautiful. This cover is beautiful, and the book actually gives you instructions on how to fold it into a paper boat. So I think that's so cute. I think it's adorable. That book is about a pawn shop owner where you can trade in life choices, and one of the choices gets stolen, and the new owner, her father, goes missing. And so her and this random guy that she kind of meets out of nowhere decide to go on this hunt to try and find her father and this missing choice. So far, it's pretty good. It's really interesting all the places they go. They're very creative. But this man is ride or die. He just showed up at this pawn shop and is like, oh yeah, I'll help you. And then all of these crazy things happen. He's just like, yeah, I'm here. I'll keep going. He's very ride or die, and I think that's very entertaining. But so far, that's the only two books I'm in the middle of. I'm not sure what else I'll read during the month of February, but I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you're reading down below, and yeah, bye.